The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Boy, oh boy, I can't think of a better way to start a year than with the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, which I just did. Now, I have a custom that when I run across a good media article dealing with the Second Amendment, I often bring it along and read it into the record right after I recite respectfully the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. And I've got two of them in front of me today. I've got one that ran on December 29 and one that ran on December 30. They're both from Tom Knighton, who has a website called Bearing Arms. And the December 30 is entitled Biden's Poll Numbers and 2021 Gun Sales. The 29er says op-ed refers to Biden gun control as voodoo. And I think I'm going to go with voodoo because if for no other reason than for purposes of symmetry. You'll recall that I closed out last year with those immortal words that I close out every show with that sound like this. Let's go Biden. Let's go Brandon. Yeah, which is a tribute to our president. So it just seems that to bookend that long weekend, I had to go with op-ed refers to Biden's gun control as voodoo. Some of us are old enough to remember the term voodoo economics. It was George H.W. Bush. However, the concept of voodoo policy is still with us. It's a handy turn of phrase for any ill-advised policy that may do the opposite of what it's supposed to do. That's why I applaud columnist Don Feeder for using it for gun control. President Biden has returned to an old standby for liberal crime fighters, more gun control. This month, the president used the anniversary of the Sandy Hook shootings to push gun control legislation that included expanded background checks and $5 billion for community anti-violence programs. You know, you could spend most of that on Democrats, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, etc. Maybe this is just a ruse to put money in Democrats' pockets, right? Biden assured us that all were common sense measures. Oh, that would be
voodoo indeed.
Yeah, that spotted animal over there. It's not a leopard. Funny how new gun control proposals are always commonsensical. Whatever background checks we have, they always need to be expanded. Giving money to community programs, which means social spending, is one of the less favorite anti-crime measures. Crime has reached epidemic proportions, and not just crimes committed with guns. Property theft is up. A new expression has been added to our vocabulary: snatch and grab. It's a new form of shopping, a new form of cashless shopping. The elderly are assaulted on city streets. Women are raped on train cars. The murder of police officers has become routine. Gun control is voodoo crime control. It won't keep out of the hands of determined criminals or psychopaths. That's the quote. And the column goes on to say, I really like that, voodoo crime control. I like it because it's as accurate as hell, really. See, voodoo is a superstitious practice that allows those who use it to bilk others out of hard-earned money for something that provides absolutely zero results. You want someone to fall in love with you? There's a voodoo practitioner somewhere who will sell you a potion to make that happen. You know what's going to happen next? Folks from Haiti are going to accuse our president of cultural appropriation. They thought voodoo was all theirs, and here comes our president. When you want someone to fall in love with you, there's a voodoo practitioner somewhere who will sell you a potion to make that happen. Only it doesn't. When it doesn't, you'll probably be told the problem was your lack of faith or something of the sort. I get that there are many people who actually believe in voodoo. They're welcome to believe anything they want so long as it doesn't impact the rights of others. However, when you look at gun control, you see a similar pattern to the one I described above. You have a fraudulent practice being touted as the answer to our crime problem. This despite no real evidence that it has ever produced those results in the first place, and we're simply supposed to have faith that it will work. When it doesn't, then the problem wasn't that gun control simply doesn't work as advertised, only that we didn't use enough of it. It's a perfect term for any infringement on the Second Amendment. I have to thank Feeder, that's the guy's name, Feeder. Never invite him for dinner. I have to thank Feeder for it because I plan to blatantly steal this and use it repeatedly in the coming years. If ever there was an accurate summation of gun control, Feeder found it. Well done, sir. Well done indeed. So the new vocabulary for gun control measures that the Democrats are always trying to slam down our throats is Biden voodoo. Yeah. Let's go voodoo.
Some say he was reanimated as well for this.
That's right. Yeah, I don't want to use the word zombie here in the same sentence as Biden. It's certainly tempting, though, isn't it? Yeah, okay, that takes us then to Zemi Ikotny. And, of course, we got to start out here with the PDN. Actually, I used to think it stood for Pacific Daily News, but I think it actually stands for Platitudes Do Nothing. PDN. Platitudes do nothing.
I think you're correct.
Yeah. Our view in pandemic, we learned and grew from temporary sacrifices we had to make. Yeah, we learned and grew. I didn't get any taller, and I'm as dumb as I always was.
It was kind of like gun control. It was kind of mandated.
Yeah. I didn't grow at all, and I didn't learn anything because I'm as iconoclastic as I was before the pandemic came along. I'm still as much a provocateur as I always was. And let's hope that I never change, right, tailgaters? We made it through another year with the Wuhan virus pandemic, and we should be able to do it again and make it through a lot smoother, because that's exactly what our governor wants us to do. Trial and error affected every portion of our lives, mostly error. From working and learning from home, or just staying home and getting paid, to how we got our entertainment establishments near and far were all trying to adapt to the new normal, quote unquote. No. Last year was all about experimenting and adapting with limitations.
Oh, it was an experiment now.
It was, yeah. The whole thing was the masks, the quarantines, the checkpoints out on Marine Corps Drive. It was all experimental.
Passing out pins.
Passing out pins. We were given opportunities to get back into the world with which we're familiar. A sentence doesn't read that way. We are given opportunities to get back into the world with we're familiar. Nicely worded editorial. Well, don't worry. You didn't jeopardize your blue star. You weren't going to get one anyhow. The beginning of Wuhan virus pandemic tested our patience to stay in, while last year tested our patience to get in. Food establishments, schools, and every service in between limited the amount of people they could serve, especially the government. You know, they're still way backlogged up at rev tax. But they're taking dramatic action to fix it. Putting more people, no. Staying open, no. Extending deadlines, yes. Was it irritating? Of course. Did it do much for the economy? No. What these restrictions did, however, was walk the fine line of accommodating our daily news while trying to keep us safe. Safe from what? The governor? Last year, we learned all about living with the pandemic, and we're still learning. With the discovery of the Delta and Omicron variants, we had to learn quick and work with what we already had: Wuhan virus vaccines and the boosters, outpatient monoclonal antibody treatment. Though these remedies aren't the solutions to get rid of our masks, do away with social distancing, and forget about standard hygiene, they're necessary to better cope with this virus, giving us some of the sense of safety and security that we once had. We came so far last year. Now we allow both vaccinated and unvaccinated in establishments, at school and sporting events, at the movies, or a variety of other activities. We learned and grew from the temporary sacrifices we had to make. There were tons of risks, but the measures we took saved lives and allowed for us to gradually relax restrictions and move to a greater sense of, get this, Jose, normalcy. It's too early to expect that 2022 will be brighter and better. 2023 will be, though, because we're probably going to have a new governor. We've learned that we can adapt and take the measures needed to protect ourselves and other ones while still moving forward. I'm surprised that somehow they didn't work into the text somewhere, and we went out and won one for the Gipper. It sounds kind of like the illiterate football coach's halftime speech, doesn't it? Yeah,
they won one for the Jipper.
Yeah, not very good, Daily News.
I just find it amazing that after the year is over, they're finally admitting this was an experiment.
It was an experiment, yeah. Okay, then we go to the Post. In 2022, utilities customers deserve more. No, I think I filed a petition for a writ of I told you so with you, Jose. I said, you give it a few days and you're going to get an editorial in the Post or the Daily News, one of them, that says if you're 85 years old and you got a $36,000 water bill, you shouldn't have to pay it. So, you know, I sometimes draft legislation for senators, Jose. I'm working on one right now. Probably Clint will introduce it. And it's going to say special rates for Iman Amku. And it will say anyone who's 85 or older shall not be billed for water unless his bill exceeds $38,000. Because that's really kind of what we're saying here in so many words. It's kind of like, you know, if you're 85 years old and you only got one spigot, there should be special treatment for you. Here's how it goes. Paying for electricity and water services can be a strain on someone's paycheck in the best of economic times. Now, heading into a third year of the Wuhan virus pandemic, we hope the Power and Waterworks authorities can do a better job of making sure ratepayers aren't being unnecessarily burdened with bills charging them for utilities they didn't use. By now, many of our readers know the story of 85-year-old Stella Beloy, an elderly woman whose single faucet wood and tin home was the subject of an accumulated $36,509.81 water bill. That's the figure for Clint's bill, not just 36,000. If the bill doesn't exceed that figure, then the customer, if it's old enough, 85 or older, doesn't owe anything. Monthly charges, despite only one outdoor faucet for all her water needs, skyrocketed to more than $10,000. Since then, Beloy's monthly bills have returned to their normal range, around $28 or $29, with a few exceptions. GWA's response to this situation, which is hardly an unheard of experience for waterworks customers, leaves a lot to be desired. Yeah, when it comes to beating up the Power Authority, the Water Authority, and the CCU, Post, stay in your own lane. That's my job. But only about the open government law. Maget Berdadzu, the utilities general manager, has said any leaks on private property are outside the purview of government crews, who would not be allowed to check if that was the cause of a higher bill or make any repairs to pipes not on government land. Seems right to me. If I were to put on you remember my attorney's toolkit, Jose, a knife that's so sharp that you can split hairs with it, a calculator that has an algorithm that will calculate how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, and then the dung-colored glasses. I have to use the word dung because we're on the air, that you put on and you can see every bad thing that can possibly happen 6 miles down the road. GWA's response to this situation, which is hardly an unheard of experience for waterworks customers, leaves a lot to be desired. I knew this was coming, from the instant I read the story about the 85-year-old lady. And then with the dung-colored glasses, the last thing we want is public employees like folks from the Waterworks Authority to go on private property. I can just see all kinds of bad things coming from that. It's just too risky. Even if the property owner invites you on board, it's just too risky. Now, I have my own solution for this problem when I get to the end of the editorial, of course. And besides that, we have folks out in the community called plumbers who are supposed to be able to detect and fix leaks. I know of one plumbing firm that has a SWAT team. I've seen their truck driving around town. SWAT.
They pass out Taki-colored glasses.
Exactly. SWAT. Sewer, water, and Taki. Yeah. The Barrett Plumbing SWAT team will come. Yeah, he could have sent the Post, if you're so concerned, you should have called the SWAT team and sent them out to the lady's place, right? What GWA did for Beloy was to test her meter and investigate her billing. The agency told the Post the meter was subjected to 3 water flow tests and passed them all. In other words, water would flow through the meter. Well, that's important. Berdadzu also said data logs confirmed the billing was accurate and that leak alerts were provided to Beloy with each bill. Another inspection is now underway, but without any official findings. Berdadzu said Beloy is not eligible to have her account credited or any charges waived. Whoa, that's awful. She's old. He's being mean to the Manamku. It's puzzling that GWA at this point won't take responsibility for what's happened, particularly when considering a few key points. 1, the confirmed data logs show water usage of $1,000 per hour, roughly equal to a standard hose being left open. 2, Beloy, who forgoes showers on some days. Now, if she only has that one spigot, I'm not going to think about this too long. She takes showers? On some days, in order to lower her water use, Shirley would have noticed 24,000 gallons of water flowing unchecked every day. 3, a certified plumber noted no leaks on her property following the publication of the first story in the Post about Beloy's billing issue. 4, without her doing any work to make repairs, her bill fell back down to reflect her normal usage. Blaming an elderly woman for the mysterious high billing also is confusing, given GWA's history with faulty meters. Now, this is why I'm getting so deep into this. Who blamed the elderly woman? No one blamed the elderly woman. Come on, Post. In 2011, the utility decided to replace its water meters throughout the island as a way to prevent unpopular back billing, which stemmed from customers being charged retroactively in order to recover costs from faulty meters. But by 2016, GWA found itself suing the manufacturer of the placement meters, alleging it cost millions of dollars in income because its contractor provided tens of thousands of defective meters. If meters have been unreliable in the past, even after a top-down effort to make them accurate failed, is it unreasonable to suspect the GWA infrastructure and not an elderly woman caused this billing nightmare? Now, who said the woman caused the billing nightmare?
I've yet to see.
This is just demagoguery, pure, plain demagoguery. Yeah, and I know some people out there in our international radio listening audience are going to say, "Gosh, doesn't Bob have any sensitivity for imat amko? Sa amko na ipawaan?"
That's the hook you're going to have to get over, is this false narrative that's going to be based on you demantling another false narrative.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they're well, let me go on. Unfortunately, one of the consequences of the ongoing pandemic was a shift for our utilities to focus on lost revenue due to its customers' earnings being lost, and on major capital improvement projects like building new power and wastewater plants and all of the solar energy that Clint has been pounding the table about on every occasion. With 2022 upon us, during which we will see an election for members of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities, we hope the focus can be put back onto customer service, specifically to make sure everyone is billed fairly. I can see it now. Challenging incumbents who are running for re-election will recycle the old opposition to Paul Ryan ad. Paul Ryan pushing the old lady down the hill. Remember that, in a wheelchair? That's really what this editorial is about. There's plenty of good stuff in here for a real editorial without lapsing into this demagoguery. Not every customer with a questionable bill will get the attention of a good Samaritan, their mayor, or our public utilities. But every ratepayer being asked to fork over thousands of dollars above their normal monthly usage should be confident they won't be forced to pay for mistakes that aren't theirs. That whoever wrote this editorial ought to run for president. It's just like Joe Biden. We don't know the facts yet, but by God, we're going to condemn somebody for it. And they shouldn't have to run to the media in order to have their case handled respectfully and sensitively. So here's what happened. We have an unbelievably high water bill, a cumulative bill of over $36,000. And we have pretty good evidence that there was no leak. If I had a leak like that around my house, I wouldn't even try to fix the leak. I'd buy a couple of jet skis, set up a little concession booth, maybe a
Capitalize on this.
a snack bar or something like that. I'd get into water sports and make enough money to pay that water bill. So there's that, right?
The Guamanian Dells.
Yeah. So there's that. But, this thing about blaming the old lady and the, if you separate the connotation from the denotation, what actually happened, the connotation here is this: if you're old and something doesn't work out right, you've got to blame the public utilities. Now one byproduct of doing this, let's say that at the next CCU meeting, they look at this and Joey Duane says, we can't allow this to happen, because the next thing people are going to be sending us sunshine law requests about this case. And we can't ever answer a sunshine law request with a straight answer. So we are just going to have to forgive this charge. Do I hear a motion? Senator Rigel, did you want to speak on this matter? So if that happens, we are just greasing up the slippery slope. Everybody with a high water bill will go out and buy a forged driver's license that shows he's 30 years older than he really is, present himself to the post and say, hey, look what happened to me here, right? So what I'm driving at is this, that if we have something that doesn't look right, we should fix it. We should fix it if we're dealing with an 18-year-old kid that just got out of high school, or an 85-year-old lady that's only got one water faucet. Doing it right is doing it right every time. You don't have to get into this bathos and trying to play on people's sympathies for the old. Nobody has more sympathy for old folks than I do. It happens every time I get up and look in the mirror and say, God, is there something wrong with my mirror? My hair is brown. What happened here? My mustache. Oh, no, it's not the mirror. It's me. I'm old. So.
Mirror's got to go easy on the 86-year-olds and 80-year-olds.
Yeah. And so we don't need to, and these cheap shots, like the ones that I highlighted as I went through it. So if something is wrong, we should try to fix it, because remember this, somebody has to pay for $36,000 worth of water. If it's not the old lady and we can't find somebody else to charge it to, then the charge comes back to you and me and everybody who uses water. All right, I'm kind of thirsty. I got to go get a drink. So let's take a short break.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Fuel up today with the new $8 gasolina meal. 2 all-beef Nathan's hot dogs, a big bag of chips, regular size M&Ms, and a 16-ounce gasolina energy drink. The brand new drink in a black can that brings a burst of energy. Drive in now and fire up your day with the $8 gasolina meal. Promo is only available at your favorite Circle K Guam locations while supplies last. Circle K, take it easy.
Portions of the program brought to you by Nissan. Choose your favorite Nissan, and there's an abundance of Nissan automobiles to choose from. Rogues, Rogue Sports, Muranos, Kicks, Sentras, Leafs, Rogues, and then start talking about the deal they want to put together for you. Enjoy 0% APR, or your first 3 payments are on them. Just sign and drive away. Inventory limited, so don't wait. See Nissan Guam first. Wait, there's the fine print. I got to read the thing in fine print ease. On approved credit, 3 payments calculated, 5% APR, 60 months term, and based on the actual selling price of the vehicle only, not including down payment or any aftermarket products or accessories. See Nissan Guam for full details.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So going back here to this editorial, there's enough material here for a really good editorial. Demagoguery is not necessary to make a good editorial here. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm not sympathetic to the old lady. I know that as you grow older, it becomes harder and harder to deal with these things. You know, if I had a water leak in my house and I had to shut the water off, I can't remember where the wrench is that I used to turn. I used to know exactly where it was. Nowadays, knowing where my keys are is quite a challenge. So I can understand that. So here is something for the CCU to consider when they go through their teeth gnashing about this editorial here. If they had an MOU with the Department of Public Health and Social Services Division of Senior Citizens, when they see something that is potentially an anomalous charge, and not just send a notice in the bill, but send somebody out to eyeball the place, and it looks like the lady the ratepayer needs some help, contact the Division of Senior Citizens and ask them to come out and see if that person needs some help. That would be my solution to the problem. I don't want to see utilities become social service agencies. That's why I was not crazy about the idea of the governor giving some of that federal money to the power authority to keep rates down. If people can't afford to pay their power bills, that shouldn't be the power authority's problem. It could be the government's problem, but I don't want either one of those outfits to become social welfare agencies. So I leave it with this. Anyone who understands this story has got to feel sorry for the poor old lady, especially when you saw the picture of her surroundings, etc. But that's not a job for the Waterworks Authority. That's a job for all of the do-gooders in our community, government and private, whatever. I would hope that someone would look at that, some charitable organization, say, geez, we ought to try to help this lady.
You know, like you said, you talked about this and you predicted everything that was going to be said in this op-ed. And we talked about how no matter who it happened to, this anomaly should have had red flags other than just say, hey, guess what? Your water is up.
Yeah.
Because the GWA knows the difference between a commercial business and a residential area.
Sure.
And when you see something like that, red flags.
Yeah.
That's how they catch people who are using electricity for other means in the residential areas.
And the banks have raised that red flagging to the state of an art. I've had my credit card charges declined twice. Once with Ray and the commander of Camp Blas. And to go back, it's very embarrassing when you tender your card to say, well, I'm sorry, Bob, but the charge was rejected. Turned out it was the Bank of Guam's theft detection devices.
So it's possible
to
see these things.
That they shut it off. Yeah, so they could build some safeguards in there. Now I think it's Jose Tedpago saying when it got up to a certain point, they should have turned off her water, which it makes a whole lot of sense. But of course, if they did that, then there'd be an editorial.
Another one.
Yeah. This poor old lady, trying to get by with just one water faucet, and then the Power Water Authority turns it off. Yeah, so my solution here is that people who are charitable out in the community ought to try to help this lady with whatever help they can give her. She got a son, by the way, who didn't seem to come forward with some kind of a cork to stop the flow, right? And then there ought to be some kind of a mechanism when you're dealing with aged folks to get them in touch with the right social agency. No blue star for you guys today, that's for sure. Now, the Post is saved by one of their columnists, a certain Lee Weber. Will 2022 be the year Guam voters wake up? We are into the very beginning of 2022, kicking off a new election year. What new and unusual political promises will we be hearing from all of the incumbent elected officials in their efforts to convince you to keep them in office. Now, I got to go here and go autobiographical for a minute. When I was running in 2004, running for re-election, we went around and some of us visited pocket meetings, little, maybe 25 people or so, 3 or 4 candidates, and you make your stump speech. And my stump speech went something like this: if you vote for me, I'm going to straighten out revenue and taxation, so that when you go in to renew your license plates, you'll not only get new license plates, you'll get a new car.
What was your speech?
Yeah, that was my speech. You'll get a new car. And I'm going to work on public works also. You complain about potholes and things like that. Vote for me. I'm going to see to it that the streets are paved with gold. And they, folks caught on pretty quick. That there's, I suppose some of the other folks that were with me thought, God, Bob's ruining it for us.
I can only give dashboard air fresheners.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only give a $1.64 pens, but it's the least I could do. Then we go on to the next paragraph here. Weber says, that is not to mention the golden promises from those seeking to replace existing elected officials in the governor's office and the legislature. In spite of their collective inept behavior and clear lack of leadership as it relates to the overall handling of the Wuhan virus situation on Guam, what sort of promises can voters expect from these ne'er-do-well officials who have managed to only create pain and confusion during the past few years? Promise that, how about a new law that says every time there's a checkpoint on Marine Corps Drive, the government will furnish coffee and donuts to those waiting to get through that would work, right? Yeah. Will the legislature finally muster the courage and intestinal fortitude to do their job, ensuring that we have an independent legislative branch? Wow. If you follow the Attorney General and the papers he filed with the court, he doesn't even want an independent judicial branch. Or will they continue to rubber stamp nearly every whim of the administration's desire to maintain complete control of our freedoms, with the historically extraordinary amount of federal funding that the island has been gifted by similarly cycled running elected officials in D.C.? Or do you naively believe that the governor will finally be open, honest, and forthright when it comes to a clear and decisive plan for the use of those hundreds of $millions of federal dollars that have kept her administration and this government running for the last 2 years, and for a little while provided a paying job for her son-in-law? What is it? Back to the 19th floor. What is it going to take for the government of Guam, employed or currently unemployed voters on this island, what is it going to take for the non-government of Guam, employed or unemployed voters on this island, who make up the vast majority of the voting population, to finally take a stand against government abuse and overreach as it relates to the abridgment of our freedoms and loosey-goosey spending of our local and federal tax dollars? And I've been asking the same question, up until sometime in the 80s, like 86 or 87, there were more government employees than employees in the private sector. Yeah. So you could understand how politicians always pandered to the government employees. Election, politics is a game not of subtraction, not of division, but of addition. But now we're up to the point where there are 3 times more people in the private sector than there are in the government sector. But you know who's out campaigning to the private sector? Nobody. Yeah. When will they open their eyes to how their hard-earned tax dollars are being misspent and put their votes behind potential elected officials who will actually look out for the overall best interests of the entire island as opposed to leaning toward the whims and wishes of Government of Guam employees. Better yet, when will the good people of Guam finally make a decision to go back to a part-time legislature? A legislature made up of business people who sincerely care about the continued growth of our small island economy and the people who work so hard to make it a reality. That is, a reality that allows the government to tax those same businesses and workers in order to make the money deemed necessary to fund a small number of serious projects and remove the abundant number of unnecessary projects we see happening each and every day. Do you believe this governor and these legislators deserve our sympathy? I think the answer there is not just no, Jose. I think it's hell no. Given what we've seen during the past few years, it is grace that they would never extend to you if you oppose them politically. You can rest assured that this accident of an administration and legislature who have watched over the worst economy the island has since World War II has been no accident. With out-of-control inflation, government spending, ever-expanding authoritarian controls from these same government officials' government, and an incoherent, unscientific, and incompetent public policy towards the Wuhan virus pandemic, Guam has bottomed out into what could be described in the words of pundit Larry O'Connor describing the Biden presidency as a depressing and nauseating valley of despair. It's absolutely time for some real political change. Where's my blue pencil? Here we go. Yeah, I think maybe this is Lee's, maybe his fourth blue star, but he really earned it today. Congratulations, Lee. Okay, let's take a short break, and when I come back from the break, I'm going to be chatting with Ken Leon Guerrero.
Jarrow Productions USA, Godspeed Music, and PolyRev proudly present the biggest talent competition and reality TV show in the Marianas. The Half a Day Show with Jay Martin presents The Guamanian Star. Witness how the talented Guamanian artists conquer the shining star stage and elevate Guam's cultural artistry to the global entertainment quality. The Guamanian Star is co-presented by PBS Guam, the official TV station, Tuman Sands Plaza, the official home of the Guamanian Star, Ajisen Ramen, 1,000 Flavors, Ramen of the World, and Ong Pacao's Originals. Powered by our official radio partners, Star 101, Boss 104, and The Point. With major sponsors, Ignite Juice Bar, UMAC Forwarders Express, Live House, live music, bar and pub, and photography by Glam Portraits. The Guamanian Star, live on stage every Sunday night at Tuman Sands Plaza. Broadcasted on PBS Guam Channel 12 every Saturday and Sunday night. Interested parties can email theguamanianstar@gmail.com and check out the official Facebook and Instagram account of the Guamanian Star.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
So here we are, short break, and we're back with it again here. And I've got the other Leon Guerrero on the phone. Good afternoon, Ken.
Good afternoon, Senator, Judge, and inspiring educator.
How about talk show host?
And talk show host, too.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Weber's op-ed in the paper today, and he's dead right. The only way that anything is going to change is if we as voters change it, because the politicians won't. And we're about ready to start the voter initiative process again. And this time we've got some concessions from the Election Commission that's going to make things easier. We're going to be able to do our public educational meetings by Zoom and broadcast them over, Facebook and YouTube. So that's going to be good. The only requirement from the Guam Election Commission is that the broadcast must originate in the village. So I'm working right now to get locations because, to the best of my knowledge, the community centers are still closed because we're still in a pandemic. So I'm working with a number of people. We've got a few meeting sites already located. We're going to be getting some more. But the good thing is you'll be able to attend these public education meetings by Zoom, by Facebook Live, and by YouTube Live. So that will preserve the anonymity, because the fear runs high, especially now with the unemployment up because the economic policies that have destroyed small businesses. A lot of people are afraid, and we ran into that in 2019 without a pandemic, where people were afraid to come to the meetings because they would have to sign in, and that would be a public record. But the beautiful thing about the online forum is people don't have to sign in. So I expect that we'll see much higher attendance than we did the first time around. But the goal is we get to write the rules instead of having the senators write the rules. Because if you were to do a poll of them, everyone that said they were for a part-time legislature in 2020 lied. Because have you seen any bills passed by the senators who all swore to the action?
I saw Jim Moylan introduce a bill, but there has been so little activity on that bill that I suspect that even Jim has forgotten about it.
Oh, absolutely, but that's the whole point. Jim was one of 13 people, of which 7 were incumbents. So 7 incumbents, other than Jim, all raised their right hand, knelt before the Chamber of Commerce and said, we will support a part-time legislature. We will roll back the business privilege tax from 5% to 4%. We will roll back the fuel tax. We will roll back the or more tax. Has any of that happened? No. In fact, I remember the governor in her first State of the Island address explaining why she couldn't keep her campaign promise to roll back the business privilege tax. And it was a frank admission, because she looked at the books and realized that, government of Guam revenues are declining. The tourism tax has been declining. In fact, I think it was something like, I'm not sure this is the exact number, but it was like 80% of the special funds were showing negative against projections. And the only 3 that were showing positive were the cigarette tax, the alcohol tax, and business privilege tax. Everything else was showing negative, including the hotel tax. So what we're seeing here is we have a group of politicians who have failed to keep any of the promises they made to us. And in the upcoming voter initiative, we have 10 meetings that we are required to do. So we'll be doing 10 meetings, of which 6 must be in the larger villages. So we'll be doing 10 meetings hosted in each village, and people will have an opportunity to look at the voting records of the senators compared to the promises they made on the campaign. And that will be justification alone why we need to return to a part-time legislature with 21 senators.
Yeah,
And,
I'll tell you this, Ken. If I were to enact a law, I would cut the number of senators down, not raise it up.
well, if we cut as it is right now, the number of senators required to pass a bill is 4.
Under the right circumstances, yeah.
Yeah, under the right circumstances, 4 senators can pass any bill they choose. Now, whether the governor signs it or not is another story, but when we consider who the majority in the legislature is, I mean, the governor sent down with passion and determination and all the weight of her office around the period poverty product bill at a time when tens of thousands of people are still out of work, businesses are closing on a daily basis, and our young children are leaving the island because they have no hope, and our elderly citizens
Let
are
me
leaving the island chasing their kids.
let me get back to smaller as opposed to bigger. The more senators you have, the easier it is to hide, the easier it is to concentrate on earned media and not being productive. The smaller number of senators you have, the more your work or lack thereof tends to stick out. When you get up to 21 senators and there's a roll call vote, there are three choices that a senator can make. Aye, nay, or head call. And, given we're back to intestinal fortitude here again, given the intestinal makeup of some of our senators, the head call is the most likely option. Whereas if you could cut it down to 11 and reduce the quorum to 6, people would have to perform because the spotlight is on them at all times. It's just not a matter of shuffling papers and doing resolutions and trying to be as non-controversial as possible. The old one about, if the bear is chasing you and me, I don't have to run faster than the bear. I just got to run faster than you. And that would be that's the mentality with the 21 members.
Well, the problem with going down to 11 is we concentrate too much power in too few people, and we end up situations where I'm the chairman of transportation.
I'm going to concentrate a little power myself, Ken. I got a break for the halftime show, but I appreciate your call. Thanks for calling in.
Great show.
Thank you, sir.
Look forward to it.
All right.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Decision time on mandates. I'm Chris DeMeo, Fox News. The Supreme Court will consider the Biden administration's vaccine or test mandate later this week.
Justices are returning to the bench early to consider two vaccine requirements from the Biden administration. Arguments are set for Friday on two measures, one from OSHA requiring businesses with 100 or more employees to mandate vaccination or weekly testing for workers. Federal courts have put that order on hold. A second challenge centers on a vaccine requirement for healthcare workers in facilities receiving federal funding. Both cases are being considered on a fast-track calendar. The court was not originally scheduled to return to session until next week. Jared Halpern, Fox News.
President Biden will be had worked the phone on Sunday, speaking with Ukraine's president.
The Biden administration is trying to deter another Russian invasion of Ukraine. The last one was in 2014. The president spoke with the Ukrainian president. According to the White House, the president underscored, quote, the commitment of the United States and its allies and partners to be the principle of nothing about you without you. In other words, they're going to consult with the Ukrainians on any decisions that they make. Russia has massed tens of thousands of troops along its border with Ukraine. The president says he warned Russian President Vladimir Putin that the West would enact unprecedented sanctions against Russia if it invades. The president is scheduled to return to the White House tomorrow. When he does, he faces significant COVID challenges as Americans return to work and school.
That's Fox's Rich Edson reporting from Wilmington, Delaware. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says he's tested positive for COVID-19 and is experiencing mild symptoms while quarantining at home. In a statement Sunday night, Austin says he plans to attend meetings and discussions virtually in the coming week. America is listening to Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Local law enforcement have their hands full with a surge of undocumented immigrants in one border city.
The best way I can describe the border right now is chaos.
That was Major Eben Bratcher, the operations chief at the Yuma County Sheriff's Office. He's concerned about the unprecedented number of people crossing illegally. Since October of this year, Customs and Border Protection reported close to 22,000 encounters in the Yuma sector. The Yuma County Sheriff's Office receives dozens of calls each day relating to illegal immigration, even from the immigrants themselves.
And after hours and hours, and sometimes a day or more goes by, they get frustrated, they get scared, and they get hungry, they get thirsty, and they start calling 911.
In Yuma, Arizona, Ashley Soriano, Fox News.
The new leader of the U.S. Capitol Police Department says challenges remain after a very dark day in our nation's history.
Chief Thomas Manger has been on the job since July and says with attrition and a lack of new classes of Capitol officers coming in,
we're now really about 400 officers short of where we need to be, and that's a pretty critical issue for us.
Manger did not say anything about a threat this year on the anniversary of the January 6th riot, but assured a mechanism is in place to quickly call in assistance, such as the National Guard, should it be needed again. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
The Las Vegas Raiders keep their playoff hopes alive with a 23-20 road win over the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. Raiders kicker Daniel Carlson kicking the game-winning 33-yard field goal as time expired.
Carlson from 33, his kick is good. Raiders win.
That call on Fox Sports. At least 30 inmates suffering smoke inhalation due to lack of ventilation after a fire at a jail in Baltimore. I'm Chris DeMeo. This is Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck. Zero down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
Well, here we are, the first big halftime show of the year. You'd think that folks that do that shindig at midnight at Times Square would come out here and watch our halftime show. They could pick up some really good pointers. I think this thing about just watching a ball drop, it's all right, but, you know, they could do so much more with it.
We've been watching balls drop here on Guam for the whole year.
Yeah, we have professional politicians that have raised it to this level of a state of an art. Yeah. So here we are, second half, Tall Tales. And I'll tell you what's on the card, but I've got a sermon today. But this is what I got on today's card. Obviously, I've got Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. And you'll notice it's Monday, so it's Red Shirt Monday. I'm wearing my red shirt today. Let me adjust the camera there, so you can see my bright red shirt. Now, if you're looking at Facebook and the shirt doesn't look red to you, you maybe want to, I don't know who fixes it. We take it into Apple or somebody and get it fixed, because your color resolution is wrong. My shirt is red. So we got Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. We've got Tall Tales versus Separatists, and since it's a Monday, we're going to have the one of the most dramatic videos available on Facebook today. I'm surprised that Facebook allows it to continue on. We've got the mother of the separatist movement, Hope Cristobal, on video. We've got Ruane versus Separatists. We've got Sauder versus Finut Samuru. And then Rory versus Having a Nice Day. Poor Rory is not having a nice day today. So we've got Rory having a nice day, or Rory versus Hamlet. And if you've ever heard the expression, he was hoist with his own petard and didn't quite know what it meant, stay tuned, because today we'll find out that Rory was hoist with his own petard. Hamlet. We've got David Lujan versus SDA, the Seventh-day Adventists, signifying that child sexual conduct litigation has become ecumenical at last.
I don't think it's supposed to be used that way.
Ecumenical?
I mean, it makes sense, but
yeah, non-denominational, maybe better.
Ecumenical. Right? That denotes sharing.
Yeah, my bad.
Well, Lujan is taking his fair share.
Yeah, well, it is Tall Tales after all. That's the name of the show. Then we've got the governor versus the Blue Continent, hospital guys, and Gita. And then some holdovers like Who versus Fauci. And you always have a tough time with Who versus Fauci, don't you, Jose?
I can't get past third base.
Let's see. Third base. Who is third base? No, who is first base?
Who's first base?
I can't.
I don't know who's the catcher.
Yeah. I don't know is our shortstop.
Oh, okay.
Tamara is our catcher.
Tamara's our catcher.
Yeah.
But I thought that's on the card today.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got that. But I want to go to my sermon. And I like this guy, Victor David Hansen. He's one of my very favorites. Some of my favorites, along with the most dangerous man on the internet, our Carl. I really like Thomas Sowell. You know, he's my soul brother, so to speak. Yeah, and Victor Davis Hansen, and of course Jonathan Terlahi, who is the best legal commentator out there. And I like to see good writing. There was a columnist named Ellen Goodman who retired maybe 10 years ago, and I always look for her columns in the paper. She was a Democrat. She was not a radical leftist Democrat like nowadays. She wasn't a blue dog Democrat either. And a lot of the time, I really didn't agree with the destination she reached. but I could not quibble with the means by which she took the journey because her writing was so well done, so clear, so logically put together. And these are the kind of folks I really like to see, even if I don't happen to agree with them philosophically or politically. I really appreciate good writing, and that's why I was so hard on the Daily News today. I'm sorry, on the Post today. 85-year-old woman and waterworks. That was just really bad writing. Okay, so here's today's sermon. The ungracious and their demonization of the past. The last 2 years have been an unprecedented escalation in a decades-long war on the American past. But there are lots of logical flaws in attacking prior generations in U.S. history. Critics assume their own judgmental generation is morally superior to those of the past. That's called presentism. So they use their own standards to condemn the mute dead who supposedly don't measure up to them. 21st century critics rarely acknowledge their own present affluence and leisure owe much to the history's prior generations whose toil helped create their current comfort. And what may future scolds say of the modern generation that saw over 60 million abortions since Roe versus Wade? 60 million abortions. 60 million times a woman had a right to choose. 60 million times we were reminded that, where is that folder? I hope you got it, Jose. I can't find it.
This is Attorney Vanessa Williams.
Yeah.
It is impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives.
60 million times the choice was made against the unborn child.
That impossible choice.
That impossible choice, yeah. We can only imagine what other more important things there must have been involved. It must have been involved. The bridge game, getting together with the gals for coffee, yeah. What may future schools say of the modern generation that saw 60 million abortions since Roe versus Wade, even as fetal viability outside the womb continued to progress to ever earlier ages? What will our grandchildren say of us who dumped on them $30 trillion in national debt, much of it as borrowing for entitlements for ourselves? What sort of society snoozes as record numbers of murders continue in 12 of its major cities? What is so civilized about defunding the police, endemic smash and grab thefts, and carjackings? Was our media more responsible, professional, and learned in 1965 or 2021? Did Hollywood make more sophisticated, enjoyable films in 1954 or 2021? Man, I can answer that one in a heartbeat. Even marginal films from that era are so much better than, the brand new films of this era, which specialize in explosions. Was there less or more sportsmanship among professional athletes in 1990 or 2021? Was it actually moral to discard the, quote, content of our character and equal opportunity principles of the prior civil rights movement of 60 years ago? Are there replacement fixations on the color of our skin and equality of results superior? Is that better than the content of our character? And of course, we're talking about Martin Luther King right now. If Martin Luther King, if some of Martin Luther King's DNA could be recovered and he could be cloned and he could come back to life now and give his speech, I dream of the day when my children will be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. He'd be canceled. And the African American militant lobby would be the first ones to do the cancellation. He would be called Uncle Tom and everything else under the sun. When actually, it was really, when you're talking about great Americans, he was one of them. Would America have won World War II with the current labor participation rate of only 6 in 10 Americans working? Would our generation have brought all American troops home and quit World War I in fear of the deadly 1918 Spanish flu pandemic? Are we proud that most standardized tests of student knowledge and achievement continue to decline despite record investments in education? Do we ever pause to consider that we enjoy our modern standard of living and security because we were once a meritocracy? We're getting rid of that fast. We were once a meritocracy that quit judging our workforce by tribal affinities and ancient prejudices. Our generation talks of infrastructure nonstop, but when was the last time it built anything comparable to Hoover Dam? The interstate highway system or the California Water Project, much less sent a man to the moon or beyond. We don't do infrastructure. We talk about it. And if prior generations were so toxic, why do we continue to take for granted the moral and material world they bequeathed to us, from the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to our airports, freeways, and power plants? Did we ever defeat anything comparable to the Axis powers or Soviet communism? We know the symptoms of the current epidemic of hating the past. One is Orwellian renaming and statute toppling. Historical revision often responds to puritanical mob frenzies rather than democratic discussion and votes of relevant elected officials. Where is the pantheon of woke heroes who will replace the toppled or defaced Thomas Jefferson and Teddy Roosevelt? Whose morality and achievement should instead be immortalized? Were the public and private lives of Che Guevara, a murderer, Angela Davis, a commie, Malcolm X, Margaret Sanger, who wanted to abort every black woman she could, and Franklin D. Roosevelt without sin? You know, Franklin D. Roosevelt goes back to the beginning of my life. I remember the day that Roosevelt died, and I remember how popular he was, even when I was just a little kid, 5 years old, how popular he was. But, you know, people forgot about Lucy Mercer, Franklin's lifetime achakma. Yeah. And Eleanor found out about Lucy Mercer early on and said, Franklin, you could go get your divorce. You can get out of here and go. But Franklin's mother talked him out of it. He said, it'll ruin your political career. First things first. Roosevelt, a couple of Roosevelt's kids knew about it. Roosevelt's cousin, by the way, here's an interesting fact that most people didn't know. Do you know what Eleanor Roosevelt's maiden name was, Jose?
No idea.
Roosevelt.
Ooh.
She was FDR's fifth cousin.
Okay.
Yeah. Not illegal. It's not incest, etc. But they were cousins.
That's 4 times removed?
Yeah. So, and there was another famous Roosevelt in there, Alice Roosevelt Longworth, also known as Alice Blue Gown, if you go back to the history of that era, who was a very popular person. And she knew about Lucy Mercer, and she condoned it. And she was heard to say, you know, I don't blame Franklin. He deserves to have some fun. After all, he's married to Eleanor.
A direct quote.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So when Franklin died at Warm Springs, it wasn't Eleanor who was beside him. It was Lucy Mercer. Did anybody know about this when it was? No, it took 30 years for this to come out because the press covered up for FDR. FDR was always in a wheelchair because he couldn't walk.
Polio, right?
Polio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had steel braces on his legs. He could lock the braces at the knees, and by holding on to people, he could swing his legs to make it look like he was walking. So when he appeared in public, he would do that routine. So people knew he'd had polio and he was, not really mobile, but they didn't know that he was wheelchair bound. No one ever saw a picture of his wheelchair. Now, if he were to do that today, oh, boy, they'd burn his wheelchair at the stake. So these were our heroes back in those days, whose morality and achievement should instead be immortalized. Che Guevara, Angela Davis, Malcolm X, Margaret Sanger, and Franklin D. Roosevelt without sin. And people who read that are going to say, why did they put Franklin D. Roosevelt in there? And that's the reason why. Franklin had an achakma almost the entire time he was married to Eleanor. But if we go down that tribalist and simplistic road of caricature oppressors and oppressed, will future generations tally up each group's merits and demerits to adjudicate the roles of millions of individuals in making America worse or better? What standard would they use to judge our ignorant world of racial stereotyping, proportional representation and Nobel Prizes, philanthropy, scientific breakthroughs, lasting art, music, and literature versus statistics on homicides, assault, divorce, and illegitimacy? Immigration, when legal, diverse, measured, and often meritocratic, immigration, when legal, diverse, measured, and often meritocratic, has been the great strength of America, as typified by industrious arrivals who chose to abandon their own homeland to risk new lives in a foreign United States. But if America is so flawed and so irredeemable, why in fiscal 2021 are nearly 2 million foreigners now crashing its borders? If you go down to Tijuana, you'll see this fence, pretty good size, pretty solid fence along the border. And that's to keep people from escaping from the United States into Mexico. I saw the same thing between East and West Berlin. That's what it's for. Let's see, if America is so flawed and so irredeemable, why in fiscal 2021 are nearly 2 million foreigners now crashing its borders illegally, en masse, and intent on reaching a supposedly racist nation that is purportedly inferior to those they abandoned? According to the ancient brutal bargain, assimilation and integration grant the immigrant as much claim to America's present and past as the native born. It's an ancient, brutal bargain, assimilation. Now, of course, the separatists are 100% against that. We've got to preserve the Chamorro culture. Should immigrants at least respect those of the past who created the very country they now so eagerly desire and died in awful places, from Valley Forge to Bastogne, to preserve? You World War II buffs don't need me to tell you that Bastogne was the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler's last offensive, which had been successful, would have allowed him to drive all the way to the Atlantic, and it could have had a significant impact on World War II. That was General McAuliffe's famous answer to the Germans' request that the Americans surrender or be wiped out. He wrote back one word. He sent back a message of one word: nuts. And of course, every American knew exactly what it meant. The Germans were nuts. Yeah. let's see, shouldn't immigrants at least respect as you were? Never in history has such a mediocre but self-important and ungracious generation owed so much and yet expressed so little gratitude to its now dead forebears. You know, I feel like, give him a round of applause. I mean, he really nailed it. It's exactly right. And unfortunately, the folks who are most likely to read this are conservatives who already know it anyhow. The ones that don't know it will reject it as being old-fashioned. All right, let's head for Wrigley Field in the seventh inning stretch.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guam Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pika's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Portions of the program brought to you by Nissan. Choose your favorite Nissan, and there's an abundance of Nissan automobiles to choose from. Rogues, Rogue Sports, Muranos, Kicks, Sentras, Leafs, Rogues, and then start talking about the deal they want to put together for you. Enjoy 0% APR, or your first 3 payments are on them. Just sign and drive away. Inventory limited, so don't wait. See Nissan Guam first. Wait, there's the fine print. I got to read the thing in fine print ease. On approved credit, 3 payments calculated, 5% APR at 60 months term, and based on the actual selling price of the vehicle only, not including down payment or any aftermarket products or accessories. See Nissan Guam for full details.
Wrigley Field in Chicago, Illinois. Or wait a minute, Wrigley Field in Cincinnati, Ohio. The narrative, right? Yeah, so starting out here, right after the 7th inning stretch versus systemic racism. And I like this so much, it's going to become a permanent part of the show. Paul wrote a letter on November 26 saying, "Red rice isn't red, it's orange." He wrote that to the Daily News. The Daily News came roaring back and said, "Readers to Zerzan, leave our red rice alone." So the narrative was that red rice, that red rice, although it's actually orange, is red. And you see the word orange has red letters, right? And the word red has orange letters. So when you look at red, it's orange, but the word is red. The word is the narrative, orange is the facts or the truth. And Paul had the temerity to point out the truth, and those who propagated the narrative, the Daily News, came back and said, leave our red rice alone. And they rounded up some people who say, we don't want an outsider coming in here and doing, it was classic about something that's not very important, but allegorically a great example of how the narrative and the propagators in the narrative can overcome what actually is, because they're vicious and and they won't let it go. So I got a good example here. This is, I've got it on the card, is the narrative versus Harry Potter. Major newspaper allegedly pulls down its Person of the Year poll after an undesirable takes the lead. Did the British left-wing rag The Guardian pull down its Person of the Year poll after an undesirable took a commanding lead? That's the allegation being made after voting was abruptly shut down following the realization that J.K. Rowling was going to run away with it, the Person of the Year. Readers of the British newspaper The Guardian are excusing the outlet of deactivating an online poll that asked readers to vote on the Person of the Year after it became apparent that J.K. Rowling happily won, as you were handily won. And here's how it read. Tell us, who is your 2021 Person of the Year? Time magazine chose billionaire Tesla boss Elon Musk. But who would be your choice? A short time later, when Rowling was far and away in the lead, the voting form disappeared along with the results to that point. A message in small print stated, this form is deactivated and is closed to any further submissions. Rowling stirred international controversy over the last few years because she publicly believes that biological sex exists, and just as importantly, that it matters. The famed author was labeled a transphobe following comments where she sarcastically suggested that only women can menstruate. Oh, my God. That's hate speech. That is hate speech. Only women can. How dare she? So there you go. This is a classic example of the narrative and the facts. Harry Potter, an extremely successful author. She came out of nowhere with her Harry Potter series. And it's an absolute, provable, scientific fact that only women can menstruate. But because she said that, and because she doesn't buy into the tranny agenda, the tranny narrative, then the newspaper called The Guardian said she can't possibly be the Person of the Year. Here we go. The narrative. Although the letters say red, they're actually orange. So that's why I think that Paul did such a great service for us when he came along and talked about the real color of red rice. Okay, next we go to, where's my card here? Tall Tales versus Separatists. And you'll recall that I've talked about the insert that ran in the December 6th Daily News, Guam, a territory like no other. I've spent a lot of time talking about the Commission for Chamorro Independence, the Papier-Mâché Commission, etc. And I've emphasized over and over again that the commission is not about decolonization. If you scrape the paint and varnish off it, it's about independence for Guam, as is this 20-page insert in the Daily News. And almost everything that comes out of the commission, including that 20-pager, is set up to convince you that Guam should be independent. Colony is bad, sovereignty is good. We got to stop being a colony. We've got to start being a sovereign. Now, the whole Commission for Chamorro Independence is the work product of a lady named Hope Cristobal, who is a senator in the 23rd Guam legislature. And as a lame duck, she failed for re-election. At the very end of the 23rd, she got her bill passed that created the Commission on Decolonization for the implementation and exercise of Chamorro self-determination. So, as far as I'm concerned, Hope Cristobal is the face and the voice of the separatist movement, along with other leading lights like Michael Bavacqua and Ray's Uncle Robert. Laura Souter, etc. So if you haven't had the opportunity to see what Hope Cristobal is like, we're going to run this video. We'll run it every Monday. So if you have friends that haven't seen them, tell them to make sure to watch Telltales on a Monday, because we'll run it every Monday. Go ahead, Jose.
Colonizer. You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization is the same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest or what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous tomorrow. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please, Father.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not
When I get a chance, go.
Please, please. Thank you, Father. Please, please. No, you didn't want to
What happened to him?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
So just Malasi.
He said,
So there you go. Guidzanai Tautanu. Guidzanai Magahaga. And the person that she was berating was Paul Zerzan. This doesn't go along with the narrative, regardless of who's spinning the narrative. But he was just there at the rally. And of course, we didn't know just from looking at him that he was a murderer and that he only came to Guam to perfect systemic racism. So that's Hope Cristobal. She's the one that authored, and she's very proud of it. She was a senator. She authored the bill that created the Commission on Self-Determination. So I think I'll stop there. I'm going to have to spend every day for a long, long time to go through this 20-page insert, but just kind of acquaint you with some of the rhetoric that goes with it, and what we're kind of in for if we go along with that rhetoric. The next item on the card picks up something that's relevant. The next two items on the card pick up something that's relevant. But I noticed that I've got someone, it's probably R. Carl, and R. Carl. R. Carl wants to talk about decolonization. Go ahead, R. Carl.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. Good afternoon, Jose, and Tall Tales listening audience all over the world. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in about this because I think it's so important, and I'm glad you're continuing to hammer on this point because it's critical, and I don't think enough people realize how critical it is. And I think not enough people realize that the war generation, the occupation generation is dying off. The next generation, my generation, I meant to mention that of my mom's total of 10 siblings, there's only one left alive, my 93-year-old auntie. And, the generation after that is dying off. And the younger generations after that are being indoctrinated to resent and even hate the United States. So
kind of takes you back to the William Davis, the Hanson Davis article, doesn't it, R. Carl?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And when I called recently, I mentioned some comments that were made by your stand-in host, Daryl Taggarty, and I thought he said them very well.
Alternate host. No one stands in for the great Bob, R. Carl.
Yeah, you're. I can see why you're always proud of your humility.
And my modesty also. But go on with it. Go on. You're talking about Daryl Taggarty. Go on.
Yeah, and I made the point the first time that what he said is what's missing in this whole infomercial that they keep putting out. It's sort of like an extended infomercial selling this idea to the listening audience is a vision of what exactly comes after post-colonial Guam. What would it look like, as Daryl said, as a formal governmental construction? And there's virtually nothing said about it. And I think that's for a reason. And he also mentioned some other points. I didn't want to take up too much time at the time, but they were so important that I figured I'd call back again and kind of insert them. One of them is that I've got the comment here in front of it. It said, Miguel and Bob, too, this is all so much political campaigning, posturing as education. And that's what I believe, and I'm sure you'll agree, and I'm sure many in your audience will agree, that they're trying to frame this, what's going on, as education, when really it's campaigning, it's indoctrination of the audience for a particular view of separation with America. And as you mentioned, this 20-page insert, it's very cleverly done. Everything in it aims the reader in one direction and one direction only, and that is toward separation with America, as opposed to building on the foundation that has gotten us to where we are, security-wise and economically. And so I think that's another important point he made, is that this is an indoctrination program disguised as, quote, education. It is not education. It is indoctrination. And I think that 20-page insert clearly illustrates that, how it was strategically written. And I think it, if you're not paying attention, and if someone doesn't point it out, as you've been pointing out, it's easy to miss and get kind of swept along with this built-in indoctrination in this document. But anyway, that's the second point that he made, and I think it's a very important point, that what is happening is not education, it is mass indoctrination, or at least an attempted mass indoctrination. And people need to be made aware of that. And I think Daryl made another important point there, and I just wanted to insert that in the conversation.
Well, I'm glad you did. And 3 cheers for Daryl. I've made a couple of good points there, Carl.
Exactly. Yeah, his time spent around you is paying off.
Well, it's certainly
his commentary.
Certainly got to help.
Yeah. Okay, Bob, but that's my 2 bits for today anyway.
All right. Thanks for calling and sharing, Carl. So I talked, about, just give you a little bit here on picking up on what our Carl said. That's what the insert is about. That's what the whole program is about. The two non-choice choices, statehood and free association, leaving the only possible choice as independence. And that's basically what the so-called Commission on Decolonization, which is really the Commission on Decolonization for the Implementation and Exercise of Chamorro Self-Determination, is all about. And I thought it was important that you see what the person who wrote the bill that established that commission was like. And you saw, you heard, you know where she's coming from. And until someone comes along and says she doesn't speak for us, then as far as I'm concerned, she does. She speaks for Robert Underwood. She speaks for Michael Bavacqua. She speaks for Laura Souter and all of the other nationalists, which takes me to the next item on the card, Souter versus Ifino Chamorro. Laura Souter, who is on the Commission of Chamorro Language and the Teaching of History and the Culture of Indigenous People, also known as the Commission Ifino Chamorro. So she's on it, and guess who the chairman of that commission is? None other than Hope Cristobal. So you don't make a person a chairman of a commission unless you really figure she's with us.
It's just funny, questioning indoctrination. You have the same people in the same positions in all these seemingly different areas, but it's the same people.
The same people.
Same message.
Yeah. So here's what Laura Souter told us in her column on Sunday. The Commission of Chamorro Language and the Teaching of the History and Culture of the Indigenous People of Guam, also known as the Comisión Ifino Chamorro, was established by the Chamorro Heritage Act of 2016. Its mission and vision is, now listen to this, to lead nation-building efforts to ensure the continuity of Chamorro peoplehood and nationhood by fostering the restoration and revitalization of our language, culture, and history as Guahans Tautautano, people of the land. So that's what the Commission Ifino Chamorro is all about. It's to lead nation-building efforts, nation-building, an independent nation, the Chamorro nation, the Chamocracy.
This is the funny part. It's not Chamorros. It's only of Guam.
Yeah.
Forget all the other islands.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that I got to get to sooner or later. This commission, the Melvin Bora, the Melvin Wanpat Commission, they're talking about Chamorros, and I'll get into this a little later on. Most of the Chamorros in the world don't live. Sumaga Gui Nia Giza Guam. Sa Sumaga Giza America. Most of them live in the United States, not on Guam. So if you're really out there looking for Chamorro sovereignty, etc., don't you have to include them also? Or are you really not all that much Chamorro? Good question. But I think this is really revealing here. Once again, when these people write, I think they don't quite realize that there will be people who read what they say and not just glance over it, but actually analyze it for denotation and connotation. All right, let's head for Churchill Downs. We're getting ready to wrap up the first episode of Tall Tales for this year.
Fuel up today with the new $8 gasolina meal. 2 all-beef Nathan's hot dogs, a big bag of chips, regular size M&Ms, and a 16-ounce gasolina energy drink. The brand new drink in a black can that brings a burst of energy. Drive in now and fire up your day with the $8 gasolina meal. Promo is only available at your favorite Circle K Guam locations while supplies last. Circle K, take it easy.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, the home stretch for today's Tall Tales. I got about 3 furlongs, and I'll get to the finish line for today for the first episode of Tall Tales this year. So I'm just going to leave Sauter versus Ifino tomorrow by reading it one more time. The mission of the Commission Ifino tomorrow is to lead nation-building efforts to ensure the continuity of our Chamorro peoplehood and nationhood by fostering the restoration and revitalization of our language, culture, and history as Guam's Tautautano. Now, if you're not Chamorro, I think the message here, it's too bad, try harder next time. So I have to admit my mistakes. You know, Latsi sa ane edidiki parentesu ti Chamorro I nanahu, ti Chamorro I tatahu, pues ti Chamorro zo. So, totos en hidzong zo sempre. So I'll never make that mistake again. You can bet on that. Okay, so much for Laura Sauter and the Commission Ifino tomorrow. We got one more item here on separatism. I've got Ruan versus the separatists, and this is an article that ran in the Post on December 31. Economist, 4.5 billion Fed spending aid on Guam averted deep slide. Guam economist Maria Claret Ruan released her 2021 economic report on Thursday, indicating that the federal government's $4.5 billion spending on the island and pandemic cash assistance to the government of Guam and Guamanians in 2021 helped keep the island from a deep economic decline. You can't fool me, Jose. I heard what Hope Cristobal said. That's just systemic racism. Spending $4.5 billion here, right? Systemic racism. Okay, staying with on the Chamorro bandwagon here. Next item on the card is the CLTC versus applicants. Now, I don't know if I'll get to the end of this or not, but I want to start it. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission, the Chamorro Land Trust Act passed in 1975. It was a Paul Berdalio initiative. The aim was to lease land to Chamorros for 99 years for $1 a year. So they could farm it, ranch it, whatever. The act never went anywhere until 1995, till Angel Santos came along, did a demonstration on the lawn out in front of the governor's office for a few weeks, hired Mike Phillips to bring suit. Mike Phillips brought suit against the governor, I think for writ of mandate to implement the law, appoint members to the commission, etc. It happened. And in 1995, the thing finally got off the ground, and people were given the opportunity to apply for leases. Thousands did. There were long lines of people lining up to apply for leases. Most of them never got leases, and now many of them never will get leases for reasons that no one has yet been able to come to grips with. But when they do, it's going to be a terrible controversy. There's going to be an awful lot of upset people. I'm going to finish this up tomorrow, I think. I got a guy named Phil Diaz on the line. He wanted to call. Nope, he's not on the line, okay? He was on the line. I guess he changed his mind. I must have said something that caused him to think no need for me to call in. But so those people standing in line, went through all of the incompetence of various members of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, the various executive directors, etc. No lease. And now they're probably not going to get a lease. The story that ran in, the PDN was headlined, Land Trust Preparing to Issue Leases Under New Rules. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission might start issuing new leases within the next several months, according to Land Trust Acting Administrator Angela Camacho, for registered lots in various locations. If it happens, the leases will be the first new leases issued in more than 3 years and the first to be issued under new eligibility requirements. The Land Trust holds public land in trust for eligible participants who can apply for long-term residential or agricultural leases that cost $1 per year. The Land Trust also leases some land for commercial use, collecting rent money to support its operations. The Land Trust law was changed in December 2020 in response to a federal lawsuit which accused the land program of being illegally race-based. And that's where I'm going to come back tomorrow. Illegally race-based. You're going to want to, especially if you're in line, you're going to want to call in. You're going to want to listen and get your friends to listen to find out about the new rules, which you're not going to like, but they are what they are. Okay, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Family, there's a lot of soul searching and decisions you'll be making along the way.
Colorado Governor Jared Polis, 2 people remain missing. Well, COVID-19 has spread to the Pentagon.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has tested positive for COVID-19. Austin says his symptoms are mild, but will quarantine at home for the next 5 days. He last met with President Biden December 21st, over a week before he started experiencing his symptoms.
Fox's Jackie Ibanez. The calendar may have turned to 2022, but tensions continue in the Middle East.
Israeli airstrikes targeted Hamas positions along the Gaza Strip. The strikes were in response to rocket fire on Saturday that landed off the coast of central Israel. There was also a sniper attack from Gaza last week that injured 1 civilian, though Hamas claimed it was conducted by a rogue attacker. Egyptian negotiators are working around the clock to prevent another round of escalation between the two sides after that 11-day war last May. The development comes amid rising regional tension as much of the American policies meant to decrease tension have only added to the status quo.
That's Fox's Trey Yingst. Well, many schools across the nation begin their post-holiday classes while increasing COVID-19 testing.
While COVID-19 cases continue to surge in the U.S., a greater emphasis is being put on testing in order to keep school doors open. Some schools are expected to increase testing now that kids are back in class. Washington, D.C. and Baltimore schools are taking a different approach, extending their winter break until Wednesday so they can test staff and students before reopening. Chicago school officials have recommended to parents that they give rapid tests to their kids before they come back to the classroom.
Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
What are the most important issues facing Americans today? Every Monday, join me, Brett Baer, chief political anchor and executive editor of Special Report, and my rotating all-star panel of experts as we discuss the policies, practices, and solutions to the biggest and most important issues of the day. You can hear new episodes every Monday. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
The Fox News Rundown is a weekday morning podcast that dives deep into the major and controversial stories of the day. Hosted by the anchors of Fox News Radio. Subscribe now to hear a perspective of news you won't find anywhere else. Listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
Well, Thursday marks